All right, strap in, everybody. Today we are going deep on this RTBNXH order, the code of creation.
Oh, yeah.
And this thing, it's wild. It reads like a sci-fi thriller. You got sound as a weapon, a new world order. They even give a date, November 9th, 2024. That seems to mark some sort of sonic revolution. What'd you think when you first saw this?
I was hooked immediately, of course, and the way they've woven in blockchain technology into all of it.
Yeah.
It's not just about music, it's about power and control and how we value creativity in this digital age. It's big.
Okay, so for those listening who maybe haven't spent much time thinking about blockchain, can you give us like the blockchain for beginners crash course?
Yeah, sure. So imagine this like digital ledger spread across a huge network of computers,
Correct.
constantly updated and verified. That's basically blockchain.
Yeah.
And the RTBNXH document, it claims that they've inscribed the first ever digital audio workstation, like a DDO, onto the Bitcoin blockchain. So it's tamper-proof, it's permanent, it's accessible to anyone. They call it the Bitcoin audio workstation. It's like their genesis block for this whole new order.
So you wouldn't need these big companies to host your software or to distribute your music. Anyone could, like, theoretically just get on there, get access to this DIO, and create something.
That's the idea. Cut out the middleman, the gatekeepers, all the people who've always controlled the industry. They say this Bitcoin audio workstation, born on November 9th, 2024,
Right.
will be the tool for what they call decentralized creativity.
Decentralized creativity.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful phrase. I mean, it sounds utopian.
It does.
Like this world where artists are truly in control.
Yeah.
But then they have this edge to them too, talking about sound as a weapon.
Right.
What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it's definitely meant to provoke, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but think about how music has always been used to inspire revolutions, to challenge authority. It's given a voice to the voiceless.
Yeah.
So RTBNXH seems to be tapping into that same power, but with this new digital twist. They think that by putting their creations on the blockchain, they're doing more than just making music. They're building a new reality.
Wow.
And one that can't be controlled or silenced.
Okay, so this code of creation, it's more than just rules for making music, right?
Yeah.
It's like a manifesto for a new society built on sound and blockchain.
You're spot on. It's not just the tech, it's the ideology driving it. They actually divide the world into two groups, the inscribed and the lost.
Okay.
So the inscribed are those who embrace RTBNXH and their code. The lost are everyone else, like stuck in the old ways. It's a very stark, very clear division. It's like a type of digital tribalism.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. On the one hand, you've got this vision of artists finally breaking free from all the traditional powers in the music industry, which that's exciting. But then there's this us versus them thing.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't join the movement is lost, That's a little unsettling, isn't it?
It is. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a classic tactic for rallying a movement.
No.
But it does raise some red flags. When a group becomes so sure that they're right and they start to demonize everyone else,
Yeah.
where does that kind of thinking lead?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And one we're going to have to grapple with as we go through their code of creation. Let's get into that.
Okay.
They've got these 5 tenets that seem to be the foundation of their whole philosophy. And the first one that really jumps out at me is this idea of sound as a weapon. We've talked about it a little bit. What do they really mean by weaponizing sound?
Well, it's intentionally vague,
Okay.
which is part of what makes it so interesting,
Uh-huh.
but it's also what makes it so potentially dangerous.
Right.
I mean, sure, you can imagine benign uses, right? Like using music to spread a message, to inspire change, to bring people together. But then you have to think about the other side of that, the darker possibilities.
Right here.
Could sound be used to manipulate? Could it incite violence? Could it be used to control?
That's scary.
And this document, it doesn't shy away from these ideas of disruption, of toppling existing structures.
And then you add in the blockchain element.
Exactly.
And that just makes it even more complex, right? I mean, blockchain is powerful.
Incredibly.
But it's neutral.
Yes.
It can be used for good or it can be used for bad.
Absolutely. It's the humans behind it. It's the intentions that they bring to it that ultimately determine whether something like sound as a weapon becomes a force for liberation or something far more sinister.
So it's not just about the music, but about the ideology behind it.
Right.
The intention.
Yeah.
The potential consequences.
Exactly. And that's what we need to keep in mind as we explore the rest of their code. Sound as a weapon. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg here.
Yeah. Yeah. We got a lot more to unpack. All right, so sound as a weapon, that's a heavy one.
Definitely.
But let's dig into some of the other tenets in their code of creation.
Okay.
Power through inscription is next.
Right.
What does that even mean?
So they're basically saying that by putting their work on the blockchain, they're making it permanent. It can't be changed. It can't be censored. It's a way of like claiming ownership in a way that hasn't been possible before. I mean, think about it. Traditional systems, they rely on these middlemen, these record labels, distributors, platforms to validate art, to get it out there. But with blockchain, all that power shifts back to the artist.
So you're like carving your music into the digital world.
Yeah.
It can never be erased. It can never be altered. It's a powerful statement.
It is. It's about the lasting value of art. The artist's right to control their work. But it does make you wonder about ownership in this digital age, you know?
Yeah.
If anyone can get a copy of something that's on the blockchain, what does owning it even mean?
Right.
Does that concept even apply anymore?
That's a good question. It's like they're rewriting the rules entirely.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up we have creation over control.
Right.
I mean, that seems pretty straightforward, I guess. But,
well,
I mean, is it really possible to have creation with absolutely no control?
I mean, it's a great ideal.
Yeah.
But practically speaking, it's probably impossible to have that complete freedom. There's always going to be limitations, whether they're technological, social, or even just artistic. I think that the real question is, what kind of control is okay?
Right.
And who gets to decide that?
Yeah, that's a great point, because they're pushing for this decentralization.
Right.
But they still have their own code, their own hierarchy. I mean, they're not saying anarchy.
No.
They want their own specific order.
Yeah, and that's where loyalty to the code comes in, right?
Right, yeah.
This idea of keeping everyone inside the order, on the same page, following the same principles, working towards the same goal. It's like this digital brotherhood bound together by this belief in the power of sound and blockchain to change things.
You know, it's interesting when you compare their vision to how the traditional music industry works.
Yeah, it's a completely different approach.
On the one hand, you have this really centralized system.
Right.
A few big players at the top controlling everything. You know, they're the ones making the rules.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, you've got this decentralized model where power is more evenly spread out.
Yeah.
And artists have more control.
It's like two totally different philosophies on how creativity should work in society.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's not just music, is it?
No, this is happening everywhere. All kinds of industries. Yeah. All aspects of our lives.
It seems like blockchain and all these other decentralized technologies are making us rethink everything.
Right. Like, how should we organize? How should we value creativity? How should we share power? RTBNXH is just one example, but it's a powerful one because it speaks to this fundamental human desire to create, to connect, to leave your mark on the world.
And that leads us perfectly into their final tenet: the edge belongs to us.
Right.
I mean, this one really captures their whole vibe. This embracing innovation, this willingness to push boundaries, this belief that they're at the front of some kind of cultural revolution.
Yeah.
But there's also maybe a little arrogance there, like a sense of entitlement almost. What do you think?
It's definitely a double-edged sword.
Right.
I mean, you need that kind of confidence to challenge the status quo, to break new ground, to create something truly new. But it's also important to stay grounded, to realize that you don't have all the answers, to be open to other people's ideas and to feedback.
Yeah.
The problem with a phrase like "the edge belongs to us" is that it can lead to to isolation.
Mm,
Like you're so far ahead of everyone else that you don't need to listen anymore.
right.
And that can be dangerous.
It's like they're walking this tightrope between being revolutionaries and possibly self-destructing.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance.
We've gone through all 5 of these tenets, but I keep coming back to this question. Did they actually pull it off? Did the RTBNXH order do what they set out to do?
That is the question, isn't it? And to really answer that, we have to look at what happened on that date they keep talking about, November 9th, 2024.
Right, the ascension.
Right. The day the Bitcoin audio workstation was supposed to be born.
But what does that actually mean? Like, was there some big technological breakthrough?
Yeah.
Did tons of people suddenly start following their code?
I mean, the document is really vague about the specifics.
Yeah, it is. It's frustrating.
Which is part of what makes it so fascinating.
Right.
They're leaving that gap.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you wonder, makes you speculate. That uncertainty.
Right.
It's powerful.
Right. Even if we don't know for sure what happened on November 9th, we can't deny the impact they've had.
Absolutely.
I mean, they've changed the conversation about the future of music.
Yeah, they've brought this idea of radical decentralization into the mainstream. And whether they achieved everything they wanted to or not, they've forced us to really think about these fundamental questions.
Yeah.
How do we create? How do we share our work? How do we value art in the digital age? It's huge.
So what about the aftermath of November 9th? What actually happened? Did the music industry change? Did the Bitcoin audio workstation become this tool everyone was using?
Well, the truth is, it's hard to say for sure.
Really?
Yeah, it's all a bit murky. I mean, there was a lot of activity online.
Oh,
You know, people talking about RTBNXH, talking about the Bitcoin audio workstation in forums on social media. But real evidence of a big disruption, that's harder to find.
It's like we're trying to solve this puzzle.
Yeah.
We've got all these big claims,
Yeah.
all this revolutionary talk.
Right.
But then when it comes to actual details about the ascension,
Yeah.
the document just goes quiet.
It's clever, actually. They leave that gap. And it makes us wonder, makes us speculate
Yeah.
that uncertainty is a kind of power in itself.
Right, because even if we can't say for sure what happened on November 9th,
Yeah.
we can't ignore the impact they've had. They've really gotten people talking.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've put this idea of radical decentralization right into the center of the conversation about the future of music. And whether or not they achieved every single one of their goals, they've made us think about these fundamental questions about how we create in the digital age, how we share our work, how we value it.
Okay, so let's talk about after November 9th.
Okay.
What evidence is there that the ascension was really all it was cracked up to be?
Yeah.
Did the music industry change?
Yeah.
Did the Bitcoin audio workstation become this tool that everybody's using?
Well, it's not so clear cut. It's part of what makes this whole thing so interesting. I mean, there was a lot of buzz online, a spike in people mentioning RTBNXH and the Bitcoin audio workstation, in those online forums on social media.
Okay.
But it's hard to find solid proof that there was like a huge disruption.
So maybe it wasn't a tidal wave, but maybe more like a ripple. But ripples can still have an effect.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about how ideas spread, how they change and evolve over time.
Yeah.
Even if the RTBNXH order didn't completely overturn the system, they planted seeds. They got a whole new generation of artists thinking differently about control, about ownership, about the power dynamics in the industry.
And maybe that's their real legacy.
Yeah.
Not some big technological breakthrough or a huge power shift, but a change in how people think.
It's like they introduced this virus of an idea, and even if the original version didn't fully take over, it changed, it adapted, it's still out there.
That's a great way to put it. So where do we go from here? How do we make sense of all of this movement, this document, this idea of a sonic revolution?
Well, I think the key is to be critical, to separate the talk from what actually happened, and to remember that the future of music, like the future of anything really, it's not set in stone. It's always changing, always evolving. It's shaped by so many different forces that we might not even be aware of.
So instead of trying to predict the future, maybe we should just just stay engaged.
Yeah.
Keep listening.
Uh-huh.
Be open to new possibilities.
Exactly. And remember that the most powerful revolutions, they often start quietly, like a new idea, a
Yeah.
new perspective,
Right.
a spark of creativity that starts a chain reaction.
Mm.
The RTBNXH order might not be in the news anymore, but the questions they ask, the ideas they put out there, they're still echoing.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe the real sonic revolution is still ahead of us.
Well, on that note, we want to thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the strange world of the RTBNXH order. We hope this has gotten you thinking, challenged some of your assumptions, and maybe even left you with more questions than answers.
That's what we like to do.
Because at the end of the day, the future of sound isn't something that just happens to us.
Right.
It's something that we all play a part in creating.
So keep listening.
Yeah.
Keep creating and keep questioning.
The journey's just getting started.